Emily Carter. I'm 31 years old, and last winter, my parents demanded something that turned my blood cold. We were seated at the long dining table, the chandeliers spilling harsh light across polished wood. My father's voice carried no hesitation, only command. Emily, you'll sell the jewelry. All of it. $3 million, enough for the mansion your brother deserves. The words hit harder than any storm. My hand instinctively touched the sapphire ring I'd purchased after my first promotion, the one reminder that my hard work meant something. Across the table, my mother's eyes narrowed. She didn't plead. She dictated. It's not really your jewelry, is it? You don't need it. But your brother, he needs a home. And then there was Daniel, my younger brother, leaning back in his chair, swirling his whiskey with a grin that told me this wasn't a request. He believed he had already won. The air thickened. I felt small, as if every sparkle from the chandelier fractured into knives pointed at me. I wanted to laugh, to scream, to ask if they even saw me as their daughter anymore, or just a walking vault they could unlock at will. Instead, I whispered, "A mansion? For him? With my work?" Father's eyes hardened. "Yes. That's family duty." The silence that followed was unbearable, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Every tick felt like it was etching the word obedience into my skin. Later that night, I lay awake in my apartment, city lights cutting across the ceiling. My chest ached with a mix of fury and something heavier, grief. Grief for a family that saw me as currency, not blood. And then the thought came, quiet but steady. What happens when family stops being love and becomes ownership? I turned to my laptop, opened the digital vault, and stared at the glittering list of what they wanted to strip from me. The diamonds, the rubies, the emerald sets I had collected with sweat, sacrifice, and silence. They thought they owned my future. But as the city hummed below, I realized I owned something far greater. Because sometimes revenge isn't fire. Sometimes it's glass shattering beneath an auctioneer's hammer. The morning after their demand, I sat at my kitchen counter, staring at my untouched coffee. The steam curled upward like a question mark I couldn't answer. I should have felt defeated. Instead, there was something else in me, a quiet rebellion, pulsing beneath the surface. I opened my laptop again, scrolling through the digital inventory of my jewelry. Each piece stared back like a chapter of my life. The diamond tennis bracelet from the first merger I closed, the ruby pendant I bought after leaving a toxic relationship, the pearl set I wore to my first boardroom pitch. None of it was theirs. It was all me. That afternoon, I called Sotheby's, my voice steady even as my hands trembled. I'd like to arrange a private auction. $3 million worth. Possibly more. The agent paused, then softened his tone. "We'll handle everything discreetly." When I hung up, I glanced at the framed photo of my family on the mantel, my parents, my brother, me. We looked happy. A life frozen in glossy print. Days blurred into weeks. Meetings with appraisers. Contracts with auctioneers. Every moment I kept my parents in the dark. To them, silence meant surrender. To me, silence was strategy. One evening, Daniel texted me a photo of an empty estate lot. "Perfect space for the mansion," he wrote, followed by a wink emoji. I didn't reply. I just saved the image, not as a reminder of what he wanted, but of what he would never have. The auction day arrived like thunder. I stood behind the glass wall of a private viewing room as bidders raised their paddles. The air buzzed with numbers higher and higher until I realized we weren't talking 3 million anymore. We were talking closer to 5.5 million. I pressed my hand to the glass, not to the jewels, but to the reflection of myself staring back, a woman who wasn't property, who wasn't theirs to command. That night, instead of wiring money to my brother's dream, I signed papers with an architect. A hospital. In the small rural town where my mother had been born, the town she abandoned but never spoke of. And for the first time in months, I slept. Because I wasn't just dismantling their control. I was building something untouchable. It didn't take long for the silence to bother them. One Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed with my mother's name. I let it ring until her voice filled the voicemail. "Emily, your father..." and I need an update. Daniel has already found an architect. Don't make this difficult. I deleted it without listening to the end. But by Wednesday, my father's call came, harder, sharper. Emily, enough games. We raised you better than this. Your brother is waiting. I almost laughed. Raised me? They had raised Daniel into entitlement and me into silence. But silence has a way of sharpening into steel. By the end of that week, the auction funds had been transferred into an escrow account. $500,000 had already been allocated to the hospital foundation. Groundbreaking was set for spring. At work, I kept my composure, but inside, I carried a secret too heavy and too bright. My assistant caught me smiling one afternoon and asked why. I just said, something good is finally in motion. Meanwhile, Daniel grew impatient. He sent photos of luxury cars, floor plans of sprawling estates, even wine cellars he thought he'd fill. Every message came with the same assumption that I existed to bankroll his fantasy. Finally, one evening, he showed up at my apartment. I opened the door to find him leaning against the frame, smug as ever. So, when do we see the check? I've already told friends about the house. I stepped aside, letting him in. He strolled through my living room like he owned it, picking up trinkets, glancing at framed art. You don't even need all this jewelry crap, he muttered. You don't even have a family to pass it down to. I stood still, pulse steady, almost frighteningly calm. Daniel, the jewelry's gone.
He spun. Gone?
What the hell do you mean gone? I let the words drip slowly, deliberately. I sold it. Every piece. His jaw dropped, his face red with disbelief. Finally. About time you listened. So when do I get the wire? I smiled, not cruelly, but with something deeper. You don't. It's already gone. To something bigger than you'll ever imagine. The silence that followed was almost holy. For the first time in my life, I wasn't small in front of him. I wasn't resource or servant. I was untouchable. And I could see the fear flicker in his eyes, the kind of fear only born when someone realizes their grip has slipped forever. The announcement broke on a Tuesday morning. I was at my office desk when the news alert lit up my phone. Philanthropist funds new hospital in rural Georgia, a game changer for the community. The headline was followed by my name, my photo, and a press release I had quietly coordinated with the foundation's PR team. By noon, my inbox overflowed. Colleagues stopped by my office to congratulate me, their words full of awe. Emily, this is incredible. You didn't tell us you were doing something this big. You're changing lives. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not for the jewelry, not for the wealth, but for something beyond myself. Then my phone rang.
Mom.
Emily Carter, she hissed, voice trembling with rage. What have you done? I kept my voice steady. I invested where it mattered. You were supposed to support your brother, she snapped. Not strangers. Strangers? I whispered, anger flickering. That town is where you were born. Those people carry your name, your roots. But I guess they're strangers to you now. Silence. A dangerous, cutting silence. Then her words, low and venomous. You've humiliated this family. Not an ounce of pride. Not a moment of recognition. Just fury that the money hadn't gone to Daniel's mansion. By evening, my father called too. His voice was colder than hers. You think the world applauds you now, Emily. But family comes first. You've betrayed us. I stared out my window at the city skyline, the lights flickering like stars I could almost touch. No, Dad. I finally chose myself. The next weekend, I visited the small Georgia town. The groundbreaking ceremony had drawn a modest crowd, children, elderly, families clutching one another's hands. When I stepped onto the stage, their applause wrapped around me like warmth I hadn't felt in years. A little girl tugged my sleeve after the ceremony. Will my grandma get medicine here now? She asked. I knelt, tears pricking my eyes. Yes, sweetheart. She will. That moment was louder than any applause. Louder than my parents' disapproval. Louder than Daniel's entitlement. Because revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it heals. And as I stood under the bright southern sun, I realized my family might never forgive me, but an entire town just had a future. Daniel's downfall didn't come as a crash. It came as a slow, ugly unraveling. At first, he tried to bluff. Photos on social media of luxury open houses, captions about future plans, posts about the estate he was designing. He wanted the world to believe the mansion was already his. But lies have short legs. 2 months later, reality crept in. His landlord raised rent on his downtown loft. Friends stopped showing up when the bills at expensive restaurants were no longer covered by him. The shine wore off, and people began to see what he really was, a man without substance, living off expectations. Then the text started. "Emily, you owe me. I gave up other options because Dad said you'd take care of me." When I didn't answer, they turned darker. "You ruined my future. I had a life planned and you stole it." I read them once, then set my phone face down. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. His pain wasn't mine to carry. The breaking point came in late spring. I was driving back from the hospital site, construction humming, steel beams reaching upward like promises, when his name flashed across my screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. His voice was frantic, high-pitched, not the smooth arrogance I'd always known. "I'm being evicted, Emily. Do you understand? Evicted. I've got nowhere to go. You should have given me that mansion. This is your fault." I pulled over, the steering wheel warm under my palms. "Daniel, you had every chance to build your own life. You chose to wait for mine instead." "You think you're better than me now?" he screamed. "Living saint, building hospitals while your own brother suffers?" The words cut, but not the way he wanted. They revealed everything, his view of me, of family, of life. To him, I was never a sister. I was a lifeline he felt entitled to strangle. I let him finish ranting, his voice echoing through the phone like a storm losing its strength. Then I said quietly, "No, Daniel. I don't think I'm better than you. I just think I finally stopped being less." And I hung up. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of city traffic. I thought about the girl who had once whispered yes to everything, who had bent under every demand. She was gone. And in her place was someone Daniel couldn't control anymore. By summer, the hospital was half-built, steel skeleton against a wide blue sky. Every time I visited, locals stopped to shake my hand, to thank me. Their gratitude was a balm. But back in the city, my family's anger grew louder, more public. At a charity gala, my parents cornered me. The ballroom sparkled with chandeliers, champagne glasses clinking, but their faces were storm clouds. My mother's voice was low but sharp enough to slice. "You've embarrassed us, Emily. Do you know what people are saying? That you chose strangers over your own blood." I sipped my drink slowly, forcing calm. "They're not strangers, Mom. They're people who will finally have care you've never bothered to give." My father's jaw tightened. "Do you think you're some kind of hero? You've destroyed Daniel's future. Our family name is a joke." I almost laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Family name? They were more concerned with appearances than lives being saved. The next morning, it got worse. Daniel, in a fit of spite, went online. He posted a furious rant. My sister auctioned off family heirlooms meant for me. Instead of supporting her brother, she wasted millions on a publicity stunt. I've been left with nothing. The posts spread like wildfire. Old acquaintances, extended relatives, even business contacts messaged me. "What's going on? Is this true?" For a moment, shame crept in, that old familiar weight pressing on my chest. But then something shifted. The hospital's official page released photos that same day, children playing on the construction site, banners reading "Future Home of Hope." Comments poured in, not hate, but gratitude. "Thank you, Emily. My father won't have to drive 3 hours for dialysis anymore. My baby will be born here instead of in the back of a car." The contrast was stunning. My family's voice was loud, but the community's voice was louder. Still, at night, I lay awake replaying it all. Their words, his rage, the endless question. Had I gone too far? Had I chosen right? But then I remembered the little girl tugging my sleeve, asking if her grandma would get medicine. And in that memory, the doubt dissolved. Because yes, family blood ran in my veins. But so did choice. And I had chosen to bleed for something bigger. The hospital's glass windows caught the late autumn sun, reflecting gold across the small town. Standing there during the near-completion ceremony, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. But peace never lasts when family is determined to own you. That evening, as I drove back to the city, my parents were waiting in my apartment lobby. Two figures stiff in tailored coats, their eyes brimming with rehearsed disappointment. "Emily," my father said, his voice booming even in the quiet space, "you've gone far enough. We've spoken to lawyers. That money was family property. You will undo this." My mother chimed in, her tone sharp. "Daniel is living in a one-bedroom apartment because of you. Do you understand how humiliating that is for us? Humiliation. Not concern. Not care. Just reputation." I exhaled slowly, the kind of breath you take before walking into fire.
No, Mom.
What's humiliating is pretending entitlement is love. Their eyes narrowed, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid. That night, I pulled out a sealed folder from my desk, documents I had quietly prepared months ago. Legal filings, trusts, foundations. Every dollar from the auction had already been locked beyond their reach. The next morning, I delivered the final blow. At the hospital site, under a banner that read, "Built with love, not greed," I signed the official deed transferring the entire hospital to a community trust. Ownership wasn't mine anymore. It was theirs, the people.
The town.
The patients who would walk those halls. The cameras clicked, reporters asked questions, and I answered with one calm line. This was never about mansions. This was about lives. That evening, my phone erupted. Messages from relatives, cousins, even distant family friends. Half furious, half awestruck. But the one that stood out came from Daniel. "Congrats, Emily. You've ruined me. Are you happy?" I stared at the message, my reflection in the dark screen. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger, or guilt, or sadness. I felt freedom. Because what they never understood was this. I hadn't ruined him. He had done that himself, waiting for a mansion instead of building his own house. All I had done was stop letting him build it on my back. Winter came early that year. Frost edged the windows of the nearly finished hospital, its glass facade gleaming like a jewel against the gray sky. I stood on the front steps during the opening ceremony, bundled in a coat, as townspeople gathered with candles and handmade signs. "Thank you, Emily. Hope lives here now." The ribbon was cut, applause broke out, and I felt something surge inside me. Not triumph, but release. Later that evening, back in my apartment, my phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel, written in all caps, desperation dripping through the screen. "I'm living in a one-bedroom, Emily. Do you get it? A one-bedroom. You took everything from me. You ruined my life." I read it once, then let the phone fall silent on the counter. His voice, my parents' voices, the years of demands, they all felt like echoes now, fading into a distance I no longer had to cross. Instead, I turned on the evening news. The lead story wasn't Daniel, or my family, or their disappointment. It was the hospital. The anchor spoke with warmth, showing footage of construction crews, local families, a child holding up a sign that said, "My grandma will be safe now." I smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't need to be seen, only felt. Revenge hadn't come with shouting, or fire, or winning an argument. It had come with bricks, glass, and healing rooms. It had come with a building that would outlive my parents' scorn and my brother's envy. Because what they wanted was a mansion for one man. What I gave was a home for thousands. I walked to the window, city lights glittering below, and whispered to the reflection of myself. They tried to own me. Instead, I built something no one can ever take. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of peace, of closure, of a life finally mine. And somewhere, I imagined my brother pacing in that cramped apartment, still screaming at a world that refused to bend for him. My parents, sitting in their grand house, realizing that for all their talk of legacy, mine had already surpassed theirs. Justice doesn't always look like punishment. Sometimes it looks like a hospital standing tall in the place where no one thought it could exist. And that is how I ended it.